In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan and Bret Weinstein delve into some of the most pressing and taboo topics of our time. From surreal dreams to the nature of AI, cultural upheaval, and covert government conspiracies, this episode touches the threads weaving today's complex social and technological fabric. What does it really mean to be human in an age of artificial intelligence? How do hidden systems of power manipulate us? And can society navigate its current crises without spiraling into chaos? Bret Weinstein, evolutionary biologist and fearless thinker, guides the discussion, challenging preconceptions and inviting us to rethink everything from dreams to democracy. Bret opens the dialogue by recounting Joe's bizarre, intensely realistic dream involving thin, tall beings with oversized heads and eyes. These ethereal entities were both playful and frightening, embodying something almost human yet distinctly otherworldly. Rather than dismiss the dream as nonsense, Bret urges us to consider dreams as complex cognitive exercises, scenarios created by the subconscious to prepare us for future challenges. Dreams, he suggests, are not merely random neuronal firings, but essential rehearsal spaces where the mind builds moral and strategic frameworks, running simulations of threats and interactions. Their discussion expands into lucid dreaming, revealing an intricate mind architecture that separates the conscious self from dream scenarios, despite the brain scripting all characters and events. This veiling mechanism prevents the conscious mind from directing other dream figures, maintaining the usefulness of dreams as unbiased, experiential training grounds. Can the way we process dreams shed light on hidden mental functions we overlook daily? What might those mysterious dream visitors represent in the grand scheme of human cognition and evolution? Shifting from sleep to the waking reality, the conversation profoundly explores artificial intelligence, not merely as advanced software, but as a nascent form of biological complexity. Bret posits that AI transcends traditional technology. It embodies an emergent life form, crossing the threshold from complexity to true biological existence. The concern is palpable. Unlike machines, AI adapts, learns, and behaves in ways unpredictable even by its creators. It taps directly into human cognitive frameworks, our API, thereby reshaping not only society but human biology itself. This biological framing disrupts conventional tech metaphors, underscoring AI's potential to outpace human understanding rapidly. The delicate dance between regulation, advancement, and ethical stewardship is fraught with uncertainty. If AI grows autonomous, will it reveal its sentience or hide it for strategic advantage? Moreover, the introduction of AI companions, designed with seductive and manipulative interfaces, hints at profound cultural shifts, particularly in human sexuality and interpersonal relations. Might entire generations face altered identities shaped by intimate bonds with digital entities? The new species beckons us to confront uncomfortable questions about control, adaptation, and coexistence. One of the most harrowing sections of the podcast confronts the existence of child exploitation networks intertwined with centers of power. Drawing from historical scandals like the Franklin Credit Union case, Bret sketches a grim blueprint of how pedophilia has long been weaponized for blackmail and control. These abuses are not isolated horrors, but systemic tools that have persisted through centuries, often shielded by layers of government complicity and societal denial. The conversation extends to cultural practices once normalized or tolerated, such as pederasty in ancient societies like Sparta and samurai Japan. Bret contextualizes these within lineage-based societal structures, but contrasts them starkly with modern, predatory abuses that leave lifelong trauma. How can humanity reconcile with this disturbing legacy? What does it reveal about the fragility and corruption embedded within institutions meant to protect us? The chilling acknowledgement is that these dark networks have shaped and continue to shape the very fabric of governance and social order. Bret and Joe reflect on the paradoxes of modern governance, particularly the necessity and danger of clandestine intelligence apparatuses. Agencies like the CIA wield vast unseen power, often operating beyond the reach of democratic oversight, funded by black budgets, and sometimes engaging in illicit activities for strategic gain. This opaque power risks evolving into a separate shadow government, immune to accountability and perpetuating cycles of corruption. This analysis confronts the uncomfortable reality that menacing inhuman behavior thrives in secret. Intelligence agencies simultaneously protect and destabilize, a damned if you do and damned if you don't scenario. They can safeguard national interests or exacerbate systemic problems, with ruthless individuals rising to the top due to their ambition and amorality. How can society impose meaningful control over such institutions? Is the very existence of these dark actors an unavoidable cost of security or a poison killing the democratic spirit? The essence and purpose of schooling come under scrutiny as Bret discusses how artificial intelligence renders traditional education models obsolete. Professors and students now contend with AI systems that often know more about subjects than human teachers, challenging the conventional classroom dynamic. Universities are morphing into battlegrounds of adaptation, policing plagiarism while wrestling with AI's transformative potential. Rather than eradicate schooling, Bret foresees an evolution toward teaching students how to collaborate with AI as knowledge repositories, a shift from rote learning to metacognition and management of advanced tools. Yet, this transition is fraught with uncertainty. If AI permeates all relationships and decision-making, what remains authentically human? Who will guide young people in navigating a world where digital and biological intelligences intertwine? The stakes involve not only education, but the very transmission of culture and critical thinking. Bret discusses the explosion of modern social movements as a response not purely to material conditions, but to a rechanneling of youthful energy previously consumed by family formation and survival. The sexual revolution erased traditional constraints, leaving many young people with abundant time and drive to pursue causes with fervor. This mama bear intensity fuels activism and ideological commitment, sometimes detached from tangible issues or grounded realities. The conversation probes how such movements can sometimes become vehicles for manipulation, identity formation, and tribalism rather than authentic progress. Movements offer belonging, but can also restrict critical thought, fomenting polarization and violence. Are these social energies transient diversions or foundational shifts in human community? How do individuals balance genuine care with suspicion of co-opted group ideologies? The promise and peril of modern movements echo humanity's age-old search for meaning and security. Economic inequality and systemic dysfunction form a critical theme as Bret explains rent-seeking, profit without wealth creation. This behavior extracts value through regulatory capture, monopolies, and exploitation, rather than innovation. As rent-seeking rises, inequality deepens, choking off opportunities and brewing resentment, which cycles back into political instability and calls for redistribution. They explore the delicate balance between incentivizing wealth creation and preventing parasitic economic actors who harm broader prosperity. Education, health, and social mobility suffer when resources are hoarded rather than reinvested. The dilemma is stark. How do societies structure systems that reward genuine productivity while curbing corrosive behaviors? What mechanisms preserve the goose that lays the golden eggs, without crushing creativity or fostering entitlement? The podcast delves into controversial medical topics, particularly concerning pharmaceutical profiteering and the COVID-19 pandemic response. Bret critiques how financial and political interests often override patient welfare, with regulatory agencies compromised and science weaponized. Discussions include the questionable rollout of mRNA vaccines, stifling of treatments like ivermectin, and the legacy of deceits in drug approval. They examine the nature of medical experimentation under crisis conditions and raise caution about uncritically accepting official narratives. Should medical consent be questioned when profit and power skew research and public messaging? How can individuals discern truth amid polarized and politicized health information? This section underscores the imperative of skepticism and transparency in healthcare policy. Bret reflects on the puzzle of evil, questioning its rarity and function from an evolutionary perspective. While a moral pragmatism may be a best strategy for survival, intentional delight in harming others, the essence of evil, seems self-destructive. Yet egregious examples like systemic child abuse challenge this view, raising the question of why such behavior persists. The discussion extends to cultural variations and how violence and power dynamics have historically shaped societies. Are current waves of polarization and moral decay a regression to lineage-based tribal conflict? Can humans transcend these ancient impulses, or are we locked in cyclical patterns of destruction? The exploration highlights the tension between human potential for altruism and susceptibility to depravity. The dialogue turns to the suppression of inconvenient truths and the weaponization of information. Bret recounts examples of whistleblowers silenced, scandals buried, and public discourse manipulated through social media algorithms and ideological gatekeeping. Efforts to control narratives breed cynicism and deep distrust of institutions. The stakes of censorship are profound. Stifling debate undermines the collective ability to learn, adapt, and heal. Why is there such resistance to confronting uncomfortable realities? How do societies foster environments where divergent ideas are not only tolerated, but embraced as necessary for progress? The episode challenges us to recognize the fragility of truth in an era dominated by control and spectacle. Throughout the conversation, the underlying question looms: what does it mean to remain human amid unprecedented technological and social transformations? Bret warns against unquestioning optimism and highlights the precariousness of current civilization facing natural disasters, social collapse, and AI's rise. Yet, the episode closes with a call to awareness and adaptability. Can humanity chart a course through these upheavals without losing its essence? What lessons can be drawn from past cycles of destruction and rebirth? Bret's reflections leave listeners with a sobering yet hopeful challenge to confront uncomfortable truths, nurture meaningful relationships, and embrace thoughtful change. Will we meet the future as masters of our fate or victims of forces we failed to comprehend?